What's up, guys? It's Dragonfly Mike 77. Today I'm going to be showing you guys how I've been using the Lotus 3 and eggy bowls. I don't do this every single time now, but most of the time this is how I like to do it. At first, I'm going to show you guys just how I pack must-have in it, and then I'm going to show you guys how to do a layered pack. When it comes to just must-have, it's really goopy. It takes heat okay. No, I mean, it's not like the most heat resilient brand out there when it comes to how it smokes, but it's all right. And today this is apple drops, which is pretty good. So I'm just gonna kind of mush it in there at first. And then I take my foil poker and I really break it up. And this takes a while, despite the fact that it's easier to pack than Tangiers, because I think it has just more leeway to it. It does take a minute with must-have. And when I'm doing this, I'm being aware of like where the holes are, and I'm trying to kind of like break it away from the holes. And the object of what I'm doing is I actually want an even spread, like you do with just about everything that you smoke. I can't think of anything on the market where you don't want that even spread in the bowl. But I actually want it below the rim on this. A lot of Russian tobaccos in general, and dark leaf in general nowadays, really benefits from the underpack below the rim. And I'm just slowly breaking it up, moving it around. Keeping it kind of off the edges. And depending on your bowl, depending on the hookah that you're smoking, if you have a molasses catcher or what, sometimes I'll make sure that that middle hole isn't really covered. Like donut it just a little bit, not much, but and that's good. And then of course, and that's basically it. You're not really holding a lot of tobacco. I never, when I'm doing this method, I don't think that I have ever actually weighed the bowl. I don't think you need to on this. This isn't a bowl that requires you to be incredibly diligent in what you're doing. It's the Kong bowl, and it's one of my favorite bowls right now. But that's it. And if you're not sure if you have enough airflow, you can turn it upside down, do a little suck. Don't suck too hard, though. You'll suck the tobacco through. But you'll see how that's pretty below the rim right there. And that's it. Nice and simple. All right, now I'm going to show you guys that layered pack using apple drops again. So I'm going to get a bit of a different smoke out of this just because I've got that coating in it, which doesn't happen when I do a layered. But a layered is actually one of my favorite ways to smoke right now. And the reason for that is you can actually layer Tangiers as well in the bottom of these bowls. So you kind of like fluff pack it. And it's just a really good smoke. So I'm gonna be using barely any tobacco here. And this is when when I do layered packs like this, I really try to end up creating a cross. So the must-have or the Tangiers, which I probably add not nearly as much. Tangiers when I do it this way. But what I'm doing here is, so the holes, I don't pack over the holes for the first layer at all. And I am taking some out that gets stuck. It was a little harder for me to see how much I was putting in there with the bowl a little dirty like that. But with this, it probably, I don't want to say it takes more time. You just have to be more careful in how you're packing it, because I'm really going to keep it away from those holes when I do a layer pack. And it doesn't really have to be, you'll see that like these are a little bigger than that one, that's all right. I'll even it up just a little bit, but you don't have to be that careful with these type of packs. Yeah, so I'm keeping it away from the holes here, because what I'm gonna end up doing is I'm gonna put some Alfucker mint on top of this. And Alfucker is a much different cut, and it can like sit on holes a lot better than Must Have has. So you'll see that, how I kind of have that cross right there, the plus sign. It's a little harder to see just because the bowl is dirty. And I know it says grapefruit, it's not. It's mint that I had a little mint left over that I wanted to saturate into the grapefruit flavor. So I'm gonna mix this up and get all that leftover must-have juice in there. And with Alfucker, I noticed that sometimes you get those like big chunks of leaves in there. You really wanna make sure that when you're doing this type of thing, you don't need to like cut it up or anything like that. You just need to make sure that it's been broken up. Right, the cut's supposed to be the way that it is for a reason. I stirred that up and then plop. I think Alfucker is a good way to kind of start out with this. It's a very reliable brand. It's been around forever and you really can't mess it up. So. And it takes heat well, so. All right. And then what I'm doing here is I want to completely cover that bottom layer. I'm gonna put a little too much in here, but it's Alfucker, so that's okay. But I'm pretty much bringing it to the rim when I do this, and I'm making sure that all that black is pretty much covered with the Alfucker leaves. And one of the, I'm not sure what it is about this bowl, but this is definitely the best bowl to do this layered method. It really does create a nice bake. So despite the fact that most of the heat is coming up from the top on here, it really does bake that tobacco underneath the Alfucker, and it's a great smoke. So I'm just kind of moving it around. I'm near the end of that mint, so the leaves were a lot smaller, the cut-wise, which is nice. And despite the fact that I'm kind of, when I'm doing this, I'm moving it around, but I'm kind of like pushing down just a little bit. And you'll see that it's actually going to be, it's to the rim, but it's also just a little bit below. And so I have that. See that? And that black is basically all covered up. You can't really see it. And that's what you're aiming for with this. I'm gonna take my foil. I have been using the 320 foil. I've really, really enjoyed this. I kind of like the roll more than I like these ones, but these are also fantastic, and they're like $6. They're super cheap. But all right. So once I've done that, Get the foil on there. Want to make sure it's nice and tight. The Kong bowl is a little harder to foil because it's got that rim on there, and you can be a victim of a little foil sag. But with this method, it's really not that big of a deal. So you're doing that, bringing it down. Hole pattern is very dependent on how much airflow you want, not how much I tell you that you want. That is something that is all on the user. Since that Kong bowl has that edge right there, I like to, just so I have a little bit of a marker. I'm gonna come in, and I'm not really going all the way in here. You can see it's already starting to sag because of that outer rim, but that's okay. I'll fix that once I get all those holes in. Using a bit of a restricted hookah today. Not too much, so I'm going to end up doing a little more holes than I normally do, just to give me that extra airflow. I'm gonna fix it just a little bit. As I said, foil doesn't really have to be perfect with this method. What you do have to be aware of if you're using like rimmed bowls is with the Lotus, you need to make sure that it's actually sitting properly. It won't work on the chub. This method won't work on the chub. The Lotus 3 doesn't work on that bowl at all. Actually, not the way that I would like it to. But all right, that's it. My foiling is always terrible, but I'll throw this on a hookah and let you see how it smokes. All right, so it's been going for 14 minutes. And when I first start out, I have 3 coals on there. They're 25 millimeters, and the ones I'm using are the 320 right now. And at first, I leave 3 on with the lid and the vents open, because with the Lotus 3 lid, it's not as domed as the 2. And I noticed if I close the vents, it kind of blacks out the edges of the coal. So I always leave the vents open. And let me take a poke for you guys. Getting excellent clouds, but more importantly, I'm getting excellent flavor out of this setup. The reason that I think that it performs better with the foil is the Lotus 3 is pretty much a Provost, but heavier and a little fancier. And with this setup, I feel like it is creating and trapping the heat much better, and you're almost getting like an oven aspect to it, where it's trapping that heat in there, so it's not going anywhere, and it's able to just heat up the bowl a lot better when you're using the foil on here. I'm gonna take another poke for you guys. The only thing that I think that some people won't necessarily like with this setup is it does take a little longer to light up than a lot of people are used to. But this is just such a good smoke. Despite the fact that that must-have is at the bottom, because I'm trapping that heat in there, that's all heating up as well as the top. Sure, the top is getting the brunt of the heat, but this really allows it to just heat the entire bowl as I'm going. And despite the fact that I'm early in the session, I'm getting those apple drops. But what's even nicer is as I smoke this and I start to get into about the 30-minute mark to the 40-minute mark, that apple drops really starts to bake, and I really start to get that flavor coming to the surface. I've also noticed that with this type of setup, once I get locked in the heat, it stays that way, and I won't have to mess with my coals at all. This is the stainless steel one, So stainless steel retains heat a lot better than aluminum does. The aluminum works very well with this setup as well, but I feel like the stainless steel, you get locked in to this certain heat temperature and you don't need to do anything. There are times where I won't touch my coals. I might ash them, but I don't really need to mess with my heat management when I have this setup. I'll take another poke for you guys. As you can see, it's good clouds and it's smoking so well. But yeah, that's how I end up doing the Lotus 3 with an eggy bowl. I don't always do the foil. If I'm just smoking something like Alfucker and it's just a normal like fluff pack, I don't really feel like I need to do the foil or anything like that. But this is how I like to do layered smokes. And I mean, even with just Alfucker, I'll do it this way as well. It really depends on the mood I'm in. But this is really when I started to understand the Lotus 3, is when I started pairing it with foil. So I think that's all I got. Thank you for watching, guys. Peace out.